What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Royalty Gamers and Podcast. I am Jersey the King, and we are back with another USFL Fresh Start video. Week 7, recapping it. I swear, man, it's the best week that we've had so far. All around. Games, shit, attendance, the whole nine. So sit back, relax, roll up if you got to, light up if you don't. It's 4:20 somewhere, and it's time to smoke. USFL Fresh Start. Let's go.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Go.
Now, in my opinion, this has been one of the best weeks of the USFL that we've gotten all season long. No lie. I promise you, I'm telling you the truth. Listen, from the first game on Saturday to the last game on Sunday, when I tell you we had some great games this week and the best that we've had in the USFL, in my opinion, may not be in others, but in my opinion, best week we've had since the beginning of the season. And I can honestly say that Birmingham's game, the New Orleans and Birmingham's game, great turnout. The Houston and Memphis game, great turnout. Even the Michigan and New Jersey game, it was a pretty good turnout. Philly and Pittsburgh, there wasn't that great of a turnout attendance-wise, but for the most part, this has been the best week attendance-wise for all games. This has been the best week of games we've gotten, the whole nine. And when I say I was impressed by a lot of the play this week, I really was. A lot of the quarterback play was just immaculate to me. Like, as far as spring football immaculate, let's put it that way. Spring football immaculate. And, to say that, I'm just saying we had clean games as far as quarterback play for the most part. For our winning QBs, they had some really clean games, and I just feel like it was exciting. All the games were exciting. Every single game was exciting this week. So with that, let's get into the first game. Break down some Stallion New Orleans Breakers football. No, just play with y'all. But no, we're going to break down this Stallions and Breakers game real quick. Your boy, Alex Magoo, in my opinion, I have him tied with Mikhail Belton-Thompson, MBT, for, league MVP as of right now. Those two quarterbacks have been playing some of the best quarterback play in the league that we've seen. And I really just got to give them credit where credit's due. They've been doing their job for their teams for the most part. I mean, they've made some mistakes, thrown some interceptions, things like that on both parts, both players, you know what I mean? Both MBT and Alex Magoo. But I have to say that for what we're getting out of the USFL this year, they're doing their job, and right now they're leading the race in the MVP race to me. It's those two guys, you know what I mean? I feel Magoo's second to MBT in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Alex Magoo went 16-23 for 176 yards and threw a touchdown, and he also operated on his feet. CJ Marable went 17 of 86, 17 attempts, 86 yards, no touchdowns, but Magoo, 7 attempts on the ground, 22 yards rushing with a touchdown. So, Alex Magoo's a dual threat quarterback, and he's showing that he is for the Stallions offense, and he's bringing something to this offense that they needed with their starting quarterback going down in the very first game. Jamar going down at the very first game just felt like their season was going to be crippled, and Alex Magoo came in and he's kept them above water. And not only has he kept them above water, but they're number one in the South, and they have the best record in the league once again. You know what I mean? So this season, it's more competitive than what it was last season as well, and the Stallions have seen that. with having 2 losses on their record now. So, you know what I mean? It just gives them more of a push to try and make it to the postseason and be that team to beat again and defend their championship. But New Orleans, on the other hand, CJ Marable also led the team in receiving with 6 receptions for 52 yards. But Sternberger actually had the touchdown for them receiving-wise with 2 receptions and 28 yards, and one of those being that touchdown. Now, on the Breakers side, for all you New Orleans Breakers fans out there, McLeod Bethel-Thompson had a rough game. I'm going to just tell it for what it is. McLeod Bethel-Thompson had a rough game. And, he went 24-42, 279 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. West Hills, 20 attempts rushing, 77 yards, and a costly fumble. No touchdowns for him, though. Now, in the air, Dixon and Adams led receivers, and Sherratt led receiver Say Sherratt. Say Sherratt had 5 receptions, 64 yards. Adams had 6 receptions, 88 yards. Morris actually had the touchdown off of 3 receptions and 16 yards, and Dixon led the team with 6 receptions and 97 yards. But that interception and that fumble was really costly for the Breakers. I have to say that the interception and the fumble was really, really costly for them, and it cost them the game. The final score was 24-20, but the way that West Hills fumbled the ball, that interception that MBT threw, it just gave Birmingham what they needed to seal the deal. And the way their defense was playing as well. And that's the thing. Birmingham's defense was playing very, very well. New Orleans' defense was playing very, very well. That's why the score ended 24-20. But, like I said, when you put these two teams on paper, you would think that on paper New Orleans is the better team. But those mistakes, those turnovers, those costly turnovers is always what gets teams. It's those turnovers, and that's what did it for him. And West Hills, he's normally a guy and he showed it all season long. And even last season, he's normally a guy that holds on to that ball and doesn't give it up. You know, he holds on to the rock. And that fumble, that rare West Hills fumble that we saw, cost them the game, in my opinion, including the interception. And like I said, Alex Magoo and the Stallions come out with a W, 24-20, and they improve to 5-2 on the season. New Orleans drops to 4-3 on the season, which actually kind of hurts them when it comes leading into this playoff race. And I can't lie to you guys, the playoff race is looking pretty interesting for the rest of the season. We got to see how the rest of the season goes, these last 3 weeks. And, you know, depending on how week 8, 9, and 10 go, especially in the North, the playoffs are going to be very, very interesting. Now, on to our second game that was on Saturday. You had that Philadelphia Stars Pittsburgh Maulers game, basically the Battle of Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? City of brotherly love versus the Steel City. And it was a shootout, I'd have to say, because the score ended in a high one. 37-31, Philadelphia getting the W in Canton against the Maulers. Like I said, it was a close game. And just for what it was, let me just run down these stats. This is how close of a game it was. Troy Williams, 18 of 28, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Troy Williams on the ground, 11 attempts, 44 yards. London had 3 attempts, 26 yards. Billy Gaither had 2 attempts, 8 yards, 1 touchdown. Groshek was nowhere to be found, but he did have a touchdown. He had 4 attempts for 5 yards, but 1 touchdown. Their running game is what kept them in the game. They had 2 touchdowns on the ground, as well as their defense. Their defense, I have to say, also Isaiah Henney went off. Isaiah Henney scored a receiving touchdown, but just in all, Isaiah Henney played an all-around good game for them on special teams and on offense. So that's why I say Isaiah Henny went off, because on special teams, he was just putting them in a position to start off their drives in good field position with his punt returns and his kick returns. So Isaiah Henny really, really went off, and he really made an impact for Pittsburgh. They just couldn't get the W. Stokey actually led all receivers with 34 yards off of 3 receptions. Like I said, their defense is what kept them in the game. They did get an interception, but no defensive touchdowns, unfortunately, which would have been really, really good for them. I mean, they did fumble the ball twice too. Simmons fumbled the ball and lost it. Foster recovered a fumble, or forced a fumble, excuse me, and Tezino recovered a fumble. Now, Reuben Foster is one of those big dudes in the middle that will really plug up the holes. Reuben Foster is a beast. Like, when I say Reuben Foster is a beast, that line runs off of Reuben Foster. That line flows through, that defensive line for Pittsburgh flows through Reuben Foster. And if they can just get more players on that defensive line to play like Reuben Foster, I think the Pittsburgh Maulers do have a chance to win the next 3 games. And especially if the offense continues to just keep being good and getting better, because they're a decent offense. You know, they're not a bad offense whatsoever. They just need to gel more. They need to get a better balance between their offensive running game and their offensive passing game. That way it complements the defense, because their defense is pretty good. You know what I mean? So they need to really get their offense settled in and get on the same track and win these last 3 games, and they'll end the season 5-5 and stay, possibly have a chance of going to the playoffs out of the North. So we'll see how that goes for them. Now, on the other hand, Philly, Case Cookus and Corey Coleman and Mr. Colburn II had some pretty good games. Colburn II had 2 rushing touchdowns for them, 82 yards rushing, 20 attempts. They really had a balanced offense. And why I say that is because Case Cookus went 18 for 30, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception. I believe, if I'm correct, it was like on a tip. So it really wasn't on him. It was that defense getting their hands up, batting the ball, tipping the ball, and making a play. But, I mean, he still went 18-30, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. Case Cookus also had 4 rushing attempts with 28 yards on the ground as well. And like I said, Colburn had 2 rushing touchdowns to accommodate his 82 yards off of 20 attempts. And then your boy Corey Coleman leads the team with 4 receptions off 75 yards, 1 touchdown. And Gray had 75 yards as well off of 4 receptions, no touchdowns. And they just played an all-around good game on both sides of the ball. I mean, aside from that one, I believe it was 1 fumble, because they had how many interceptions? 1 interception. I believe that 1 interception did not get them a touchdown, but they did have a fumble recovery, and I believe that fumble recovery may have been taken back for a touchdown. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Pittsburgh did have a fumble recovery for a touchdown, or some type, I believe, a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. But either way, it wasn't enough for Case Cookus and the Philadelphia Stars. They did their thing. Corey Coleman and Gray, I keep forgetting. I think it's Darius Gray, but I keep forgetting his first name. Those 2 are what Case Cookus needs to keep being successful. And then you have Colburn in the backfield. That line keeps doing what they're doing. They're going to win the North, in my opinion. My New Jersey Generals ain't doing too hot, so I just feel like they're the best team in the North right now. And it's showing by not only their record, but it's showing in general. You know what I mean? So, hey, let's get it, y'all. We got a good season going on up until now. So, now, let's move on to this next game. Sunday's games. But I tell you, Also, that controversial ending I wanted to talk about before we get into these two games. That controversial ending in Birmingham, New Orleans game, I wasn't a fan of, because there were some plays that I feel at the end wasn't called right. The touchback, then the penalty. One of the penalties I just didn't agree with. But the controversial ending made it fun. I do have to say that. It made the game more entertaining, and it made it more fun to watch. And especially with there being a decent crowd there, they didn't have to use so much of the fake crowd noise in the stadium either, or on the broadcast. So it was a fun game. I do give it that. Both of those games were awesome, and they were fun to watch, and it was exciting to see the USFL succeeding this week on both sides, views on TV as well as attendance in the actual stadiums. Now that leads me to this next game, the Memphis Showboats and the Houston Gamblers. Man, Memphis had a crowd. And I believe it wasn't just Memphis fans. I believe it was Houston fans too, because that's, of course, Houston's home field. So their home fans are there as well, basically like, hey, we're at our home field. We don't have to go nowhere else. We already have to travel for, home games here to Memphis. So why not, we're going there for an away game. Screw it. It's just another home game to us. You know what I mean? So I think that's how a lot of fans looked at it from Houston, and that's why they showed up and showed out. Plus, Houston's was going into the game 4-2. You know what I mean? And then you had Memphis going into the game 4-2 on 3-3. Memphis was going into the game 3-3, and Houston was going into the game 4-2. So you had, a pretty good matchup on your hand, especially with Memphis riding a 3-game winning streak behind the arm of Cole Kelly. You know what I mean? But Houston's, what's his name? Kenji Bahar, I'm sorry. He was 18 of 39, 216 yards, but 2 interceptions. Ugh. Crazy thing is, the game ended in a score of 23-20. And with him throwing 2 interceptions, that just shows you how much that defense played. That defense kept them in the game. I tell you, that defense kept them in the game. That's all I'm going to say. That defense kept them in the game. Now, Mark Thompson, he was held to 42 yards off of 13 attempts, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And I believe that's really what kept them in the game, his 2 rushing touchdowns and the defense. The defense really kept them in the game, and their kicker. The Showboats, on the other hand, Cole Kelly he was 12 for 24 for 146 yards. He did, though, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. White led rushing with 19 attempts and 81 yards. But Washington provided a healthy 34 yards off of 9 attempts as well. No rushing touchdowns for any other running backs. Dillon, he was 2 receptions for 72 yards. He had a big one. Longest was 64, and that was for a touchdown. And Papelli and Helm both had 3 receptions. Papelli had 23 yards, and Helm had 42 yards. Papelli also had a touchdown as well, and that's really what kept Cole Kelly and the Memphis Showboats, in the lead most of the game, and the majority of the game, if not the whole game. And their defense, that Memphis defense, really showed up to play and lead them to a 4-game win streak and a 23-20 victory. But like I said, the 2 interceptions by Kenji Bahar was just because of the defense, just a good defense, plain and simple. But that defense holding Mark Thompson to 42 yards rushing as well, that was something that, Houston's been riding off of, a balanced offense. When Mark Thompson has over 50 yards rushing, they usually win. If he has over 50 yards and at least 1 or 2 touchdowns, they usually win the game. And that's what's gone on this season. But in this game, Memphis defense was just too strong for him. I feel like they were stopping him on the run. They were disrupting Kenji Bahar's lanes when it came to his vision and being able to look at all his checkdowns or look at all his, his checkdowns, his passing lanes, everywhere he had to try and get the ball to his receivers, and he just wasn't able to do it. That defense just was hard-nosed on him all day, all night. That's what it felt like. It was just like a 24-hour game for him. You could tell, he was getting rushed. He was getting knocked down. He was getting his balls batted down, the whole nine. So it was just a bad game for that offensive line, to be honest. They weren't really getting any push. Memphis was running all over them boys. That defensive line was just getting through the gaps, the whole nine. Them linebackers and safety blitzes were coming, and it was just an all-around bad game for that offensive line. The way that defensive line took a paddle to that ass and beat on them. So that's how I look at it. But like I said, 23-20 was the final score. Memphis improves to 4-3. Houston drops to 4-3. And like I said, the South is very, very interesting. You have 3 teams that are 4-3: Memphis, Houston, and New Orleans, and then you got Birmingham, who is 5-2. Which leads us to the last game of the week, which was New Jersey hosting Michigan Panthers. And man, my New Jersey Generals just keep losing close games, and it's like, oh my goodness, man, they're losing close games, and it's just like, damn, the season's not looking good. They come into this week 2-4, hosting the Michigan Panthers. Michigan looking to get back on track. They're also 2-4, right? It was a good game. 25-22, Michigan Panthers. Josh Love just lit up the fourth quarter, and that's where he really took it to us and brought home the win for the Michigan Panthers. We just couldn't get it going. New Jersey just couldn't get it going. Josh Love went 16-29 for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. Reggie Corbin, 20 attempts, 78 yards. Balanced. When he's running well, Josh Love is playing like that, Michigan's going to be a tough team to beat. I think Michigan is going to be second in the North, in my opinion, if they continue to play the way they're playing. I think they're going to be second in the North, and I believe that they'll make it to the playoffs if they continue to play the way they played in the fourth quarter, of this last game. Leading receiver, you had Walker with 5 receptions, 121 yards, 1 touchdown, and then Quinn with a touchdown, 3 receptions, 61 yards. Hukatini, 1 reception, 23 yards with a touchdown. Bo threw 30 yards off 2 receptions. I mean, he was just finding receivers left and right. Threw for 283 yards between him and Quinn. Quinn did have a 61-yard. No, not Quinn. Yeah, Quinn had a 19-yard pass, as well as 3 receptions for 61 yards. So they utilized Quinn very well. Now, on the other hand, my New Jersey Generals, DeAndre Johnson was back in the game, playing as well with Kyle Loletta. Loletta goes 9 for 16, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Johnson goes 9 for 14, 89 yards, one touchdown, no interceptions. They both played pretty good games, even in the loss. Darius Victor, 8 attempts on the ground, 52 yards, no touchdowns, but he surpasses the record, or he sets the record. He surpasses 1,000 yards rushing on the season. So Darius Victor of the New Jersey Generals is the first 1,000-yard rusher in the USFL this season. So big shout out to him. Big congratulations to him. Generals Nation, stand up. You already know. There were no rushing touchdowns. They were held to just those 3 passing touchdowns. Moore gave them 6 receptions for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns. Eccles Looper had 2 receptions for 43 yards, no touchdowns. Darius Victor had 4 receptions, 29 yards, and a touchdown. No fumble this week. No fumbles for him. Beautiful game. And like I said, they found a bunch of different receivers as well. It was just an all-around good game on both parts. It was just that defense and Josh Love just heating up in the fourth quarter. That defense getting the stop that they needed at the end of the game to, stop New Jersey from being able to tie the game or even go for a touchdown and win. And that's how it ended, you know what I mean? So that's your weekly wrap up and weekly recap. That leads us into the players of the week. And on offense, it is your boy, Josh Love of the Michigan Panthers, getting his Week 7 win over the New Jersey Generals. Again, going 16 of 29 for 264 yards. He was a good signal caller in San Jose State, and he's bringing it to the USFL and trying to make it to the NFL. So, shout out to him for getting that good old touchdown. That three touchdown performance was just good for him. 120.5 passer rating, 120.5. And like I said, him and Trey Quinn just went off. But that's your offensive player of the week. On defense, you got your boy, Quentin Poling from the Birmingham Stallions of linebacker, and Memphis Showboats defensive tackle, Atkins. Mr. John Atkins. Quentin Poling had 11 tackles, 6 solos with 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a fumble recovery. And Atkins, first sack came in the first, and it didn't stop there. You know what I mean? He ended up with he recorded a second sack, and he had 2 sacks and 2 pass breakups. They got this all extra. There you go. So, and your special teams player of the week is going to go to Pittsburgh Maulers returner Josh Simmons. Him and Isaiah Henning just went crazy back there in the return game. Isaiah Henning had an 88-yard kick return, Josh Simmons had an 88-yard kick return for a touchdown, and he just went crazy on kick return. All in all, for the Pittsburgh Maulers in that loss. And then we're going to end this here with the power rankings. Right now, oh my goodness, we're looking at Memphis at number 1, Birmingham at number 2, Philadelphia at number 3, New Orleans at number 4, Houston at number 5, Michigan at number 6, New Jersey at number 7, and of course you have the Pittsburgh Maulers at number 8. And that's what's going to lead to the Week 8 matchups, guys. So I hope you guys are ready for it, man. I can't wait. I hope to see you guys watching the games as well. I am Jersey the King. This is USFL Fresh Start. Let me know what you guys thought of Week 7. If you thought this was the best week we've had so far in the USFL, let me know if you agree as well. And let me know what your favorite play was, what your favorite game was, the whole 9. I want to hear from you guys. Again, this is USFL Fresh Start. I am Jersey the King. Peace out.
I'm so raw. Yeah, boy, I'm so raw. I'm so raw. I'm a singer, not a rapper when I spit.